Have you ever wanted something that you couldn't have? Doesn't it make you want it more? You see, sometimes the very best question a salesperson can ask isn't a question at all. Maybe you don't need what I have to offer. Let's talk about negative reverse selling with Matt Rocco next on Purpose Under Pressure. Welcome back. My name's Brian, and this is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about developing sales and leadership success in yourself, in your people, in your organization, always on purpose and always amidst pressure. The show is brought to you by the professional sales and leadership training team at Sandler by the Ruby Group. You'll find them in Akron and in Columbus, Ohio. They're in Jacksonville, Florida. They're in Capital Region, New York. They do their work across the country for organizations of all styles and types and makeups, but they do it all with one thing in common, and that is they do it on purpose. They know what the organization's trying to accomplish. They know why they're trying to accomplish it. The organization understands Sandler's methods as well. When there's a fit, we move forward. If there's not one, we don't worry about it. And so the very best thing I can tell you to do is reach out to them, find out whether what they're talking about makes sense to you, whether what you're trying to do makes sense to them. If it fits, let's roll. If not, it's still going to be the best call you make all day. And so if you're looking for them online, you'll find them at therubygroup.sandler.com. And I suggest that you reach out to them right away. The Ruby Group, developing stronger sales teams for tougher conversations. So let's get cooking. So folks, if you've watched the show at all, sometimes I talk about my family. They're everything to me, and I can remember almost everything when it comes to raising my three kids. And one of the things that I learned, very similar to sales, you can try to persuade your kids to do what you want them to do. Very rarely are they going to come along, and say, sure, Dad, everything you said, I'm all for it. But when you take something away, they're like, I want this, I want that, I want it this way. I don't like that one. I want his, I want hers. I don't want mine. Well, then none of you get anything. And you just take it all away. Well, then what happens is that you realize where the true objections lie. You realize where the true needs are. You realize whether there was never any need in the first place. And it's one of the great lessons you can learn as a dad. It's also a great sales technique. It's called negative reverse selling. And I want to talk about that with partner and trainer at Sandler by the Ruby Group, Matt Rocco. He's in Jacksonville, Florida, and he's our guest on today's episode of Purpose Under Pressure. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brian. Great to be here. Good to be on.
I'm glad you're here. Am I accurate? Sometimes kids and buyers are very similar, and we parents.
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah. I think most salespeople, and since you brought up parents, and I'm a girl dad of three daughters, most salespeople, most parents are trying to convince. And the problem is when you push, people, kids, they resist, right? It's human nature. So negative reverse, it flips that. Instead of pushing someone towards a decision, you give them the space to see, are they going to pull themselves toward it?
How does that work? If you give them space, you give me an example, I think, because sometimes negative reverse, people go negative, salespeople, sales techniques. It's not about that. It's a way of getting someone to kind of change their perspective, isn't it?
It is. And I'll give you that example. I think in big picture, people don't hate salespeople, but they hate that feeling of being sold. And so the second a prospect feels like you need that deal more than they need your solution, you lose them. There's a disconnect. So let's say maybe I'm on a call, I'm reaching out. So it could be a cold outreach, and I tell someone the reason why I'm calling, and they say something along the lines of, well, Brian or Matt, tell me why I would need that. And it might be most people immediately think, okay, here's my moment to start telling them. A negative reverse might be, well, just so you know, I'm not even sure this makes sense for you yet. And usually when I talk to companies like yours, they're already dialed in, or they're already dealing with, someone that's working on this for them. One of those ring a bell in your world? So it's the opposite of the way you think the conversation might go. The prospect in their mind kind of has it made up of where they think you're going to go as a seller, and you do something different.
And so are you trying to just change the perspective so that you're more in control of the conversation, or is there truly something that a salesperson can understand and pull from asking a question like that kind of throws the buyer into a little bit of a spin, if you will?
Yeah, it's a pattern interrupt, right? So you're capturing their attention there in a couple of split seconds, and you're looking for any kind of an indication. If you're live, if you're in person, of course, you could be looking at some subtle cues through the body language and the way they act. But over the phone, you're just listening to hear a response, and it's usually gold what you hear next because you've interrupted the pattern, you got their attention, and now you're probably going into a moment of truth with them.
And what happens in the moment of truth? They're going to just give it all away. Like, no, don't go. It's not we're not trying to grab someone on a lure and
Right.
hook them in. We're trying to learn something and help them learn something about us. I know it differentiates you, but does the buyer ever feel a little bit caught off guard or even manipulated by a question like that?
No, because you are coming at them with a very honest, hey, you might be better off actually staying with what you have. And this is through the Sandler methodology, and the way we think about things is that it's a it's a it's an delay. If you're ethically selling someone something they don't need, then you should not be even in sales, right? If they are better off staying with what they have, then you would want to know that. And when would you want to know? At the beginning or at the end?
Yeah, right from the top.
Yeah. So as a seller, it's an opportunity for you to say something that then is going to get them talking. You as a seller, shut up, let them lean in. If they don't lean in, there probably isn't anything there.
Yeah, and you can even kind of go a little deeper. I'm not sensing any kind of response from you. Maybe I hit it on the head, and maybe we can just, take our time back. Is there a way or a time or a way that this can go wrong if you try a negative reverse and it doesn't, bring the desired results?
If you go at something like this and it's not something that you've worked with a coach to really get it refined for your business and done in the right way, it can come off fake immediately.
It can.
Like within seconds, a prospect can feel that. So it's important that you understand the whole concept behind why you'd be doing it, the purpose of what it is, how it works. You need to build out some talk tracks around what are the common things that you may hear from a prospect, and how would you respond if it is a negative reverse that you want to use on that. How should that sound?
It's interesting when you said what that response is. The buyer says something like, well, no, this is what I'm looking for. Tell me more. So I'm interested, Matt. Do you double negative reverse it? Do they say, well, maybe you don't want to hear more? I mean, sooner or later, you have to give some information and have a conversation. How do you know when to kind of make that work in your best interest and for the buyer's best interest?
Well, it really depends what type of environment you're in. Are you in a discovery call? Are you cold calling? Are you in a second, third meeting? And so I think understanding where you're at in the stage of the sales process is really important. But there's going to be times where you do go ahead and lean in and, all right, well, let's have a conversation then about what it would look like working with our organization, and I'll share with you, what it would look like if we were to tackle some of those things. So based on when it is, you're going to a lot of times then have to go ahead and go into the actual next step of the process. But your mindset is that, and you really have to just hold to this between the years. You're like, hey, I'm 100% okay with losing this deal. If it 100% doesn't serve them, I'm gonna walk away from it. And unless they're leaning into you and it's something that they really want to pursue, maybe there's something that you'd be better off with your time somewhere else.
Yeah, so don't ask the question unless you're ready for the response. It's not just a technique; it's a true conversation philosophy. Like, I really want to know where my buyer stands on things, and so I'm going to give him an out. If he doesn't want to talk about it, we don't have to. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's it. I mean, deep down at the core, here's what we know. You walk into a retail shop and you're there for a purpose. Might be you with your spouse. Salesperson says, hey, can I help you? What do you sometimes hear? No, we're just looking.
Just looking.
Just peeking around.
Don't bother me. Put the hand goes up. Yep.
Is that the truth? Is that the truth?
No.
And at the end of the day, Most buyers are going to be approaching any conversation with the salesperson maybe through that same, demeanor and lens. And so we're simply looking to get below the surface and see, instead of us chasing or pushing, back to the original thing we talked about with the parent, instead of telling a child something, if you can let them think it's their idea, they're going to have a lot more buy-in on it.
You said before, Matt, that this is an advanced technique. I mean, it's very easy to screw up or to come off sounding fake, not do properly. And that doesn't help anyone. And yet it's something that people can use right from the beginning. I can always, even like a parent, I can always pull something away. What's one method, maybe a time when a new seller, someone who's not really used to this, can use it, even if they haven't been properly trained, without fearing too much? What's one, maybe the first opportunity, if someone wants to try this, what they might want to do that?
Don't know that I'd be using it too much without some real good understanding of where it's at. But let's just say that instead of immediately jumping off with the response when someone asks something, why don't you just settle in and start asking more questions? So that'd be a way, that's more of a regular reverse, not so much of a negative reverse. Negative reverse, you better know and understand why you're doing it.
Yeah. And there's so much we've talked a lot of in this podcast. People think, I think wrongly so, that sales is easy. I think it's easy to do poorly, but I think it's really tough to be a professional salesperson, to really have your best interests, your customers' best interests in mind, and to do the things that will help them win, which in turn will help you win. It's a whole different mindset. And this idea of pulling something away to try to get more information isn't a tactic. It's a conversation multiplier. It just allows the truth to come out. I'm interested in, as we close, can you share a story? I'm catching you off guard maybe a little bit here, but can you share an example of when you used this and the result that it got that maybe surprised you a little bit, either one way or the other, good or bad?
Yeah, so I'll share an example of a time when I've used it, and it actually was able to, and within a few minutes on the call, I really got the feeling like the prospect I was speaking with was not a fit for what we do. Although we could maybe help him on some level, but at the end of the day, I really didn't feel like it was a good fit. So I went with this technique, and he went ahead and went down the line of it likely not being a fit for him, and I used a little bit more of the technique and came to the conclusion that for now, his company wasn't the right size yet to do what we do. Mm-hmm. And so what did that do? It brought it to a no, and it saved me a lot of time. There was no need for us to even go through a presentation, go into any further meetings. It was better to go ahead and say, right now, this one isn't a fit. Let's get it out of the pipeline, and Matt Rocco gets to work on the next opportunity.
And then when it's time someday, when they are a fit, they'll remember Matt Rocco, the salesperson that didn't push, that didn't keep trying to ram something in the pipeline and bring something home, that didn't try to close it, that said, yeah, this just isn't good. I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm glad we went there. I think that's really helpful. Hey, Matt, when I know people are going right now, they're scratching their heads. Folks, if you're scratching your heads about the negative reversal, I highly suggest that you do some research. Call Matt, maybe check him out on LinkedIn. Don't just try it. You can if you want. I'd love to be there if you did. But learn more about it. And I think, Matt, if they call you or talk to you, you're not going to push her. In fact, you'll probably start the negative reverse right off the bat. So no one has to really worry about you trying to cram them into something. They should call you, shouldn't they?
They can call. And here's the final thought I'll leave with everyone. How many times have you been in a situation where you just cannot get a read on your prospect? You can't tell whether they're excited, whether they're completely adverse to what you're talking with them. They're just like smack right there in the middle, really neutral. You need something to find out what direction is this thing going to go. And that's where we'd step in and, definitely reach out. I'd be happy to open up the conversation.
That's awesome. And I think that's the best thing I like about you folks is that I know, and I've told our listeners many, many times, if you just reach out to them and talk to them, I don't care whether you buy anything or not. And maybe most times you don't.
Yeah.
You're going to learn something. You're going to learn something, if not about your own business, but about the character and the understanding of professional salespeople, the way you're supposed to be treated in that sales relationship. And you're going to learn it from Sandler by the Ruby Group. Sounds like a commercial, but I love these guys, and I guess it is. So, Matt, Rocco, thank you for being our guest on the show.
Appreciate you, man.
Folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We do this every week, sometimes multiple times a week. And so if you want to make sure you see every episode and don't miss a thing, then go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and like the show if you'd like. That way other people will know that this show is worth listening and watching as well. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group, developing stronger sales teams for tougher conversations. And until next time, no matter how high the pressure gets, stay on purpose.